and my entire standard of living is covered. I've got businesses in multiple states in the United States, and I can spend most of my time sitting here sipping on my coffee from my custom made this and that cup so that I can tell you how to put money into your own pocket. I actually finding myself a little bit more successful than you would have hoped. How much for a 1 hour intro? Bro, you playing. Ain't nobody going to watch no 1 hour intro. That's not going to work. Ain't nobody going to pay for it. Even if you paid me to make you a 1 hour intro, nobody's going to watch the channel for an hour for your intro. They're going to give 15 to 30 seconds at most on your intro. And then after that, they're going to want to see something else. They're going to want to hear and see some facts. So unless your intro is including updated stock market information, they're not going to give a shit about your intro. I'm just going to be real with you. You know, and that's one of the reasons why you see Mr. Satellite and Bayside, they got like a 15 to 30-second intro for them, because they've been long-standing, coming to the show for the last year or so, showing some love. Now, for those of you guys that are popping in, if you haven't noticed, any comments that come to the show, any comments that are positive, y'all see them come up to the top of the screen here. Y'all can mash the reaction buttons. I think my image is mirrored, so when I do this, it is pointing to your right. Either way, on the side of the screen there's some reaction buttons. You mash those reaction buttons, show your love for the channel, like and subscribe as well. But above the comments, you see scrolling across the top bar there are stocks there. Those are the stocks that we're using in a dividend rotation strategy. I'm going to be giving you guys some updated information on a dividend rotation strategy coming soon. So you want to make sure that you write those guys down as they're going, because that's all of them in a straight line. There's no deviation in them this time around. You guys will be able to see that, and then you guys will be able to utilize, when I start giving you those ticker names, you'll be able to note, grab this one, grab this one, grab this one, and which days out of the week to grab them. Set your calendars on which days to buy into them, and it's got to be before 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time so that you own the stock before the ex-dividend date, and then when it's time to sell, it's time to sell. Right now, you should have sold ABR, you should have sold GlobalNet, and you should have sold to Harbor by now. We have not bought in yet because we are looking at Zim going down in value as it reaches its lowest point in the month, which is going to be about Wednesday of next week. And then on Thursday, we buy in on its way back up. And on its way back up, it should exceed the ex-dividend value, which means, or reasonably 80% of the ex-dividend value, which means that on the ex-dividend date, when it takes its dip, it will still be above what you bought in. That's the key. Buying it high, watching it fluctuate, and then the ex-dividend date, it is going to drop the ex-dividend value. So there's a 75-cent difference between what you buy in at and its peak point that you want to aim for, so that when you sell it, if you break even on the stock, you still get 100% of the ex-dividend. But if you buy in too high, when it peaks and then dips 75 cents, it's going to be below what you bought in, which means you're going to be getting the difference between the ex-dividend value and the share value of the stock. We want to maximize your gains. We're giving you advanced level trading information based off of the way the stock market is functioning right now, and milking the shares. This is what we're trying to get y'all to understand. And we're utilizing quarterly stocks, shifting money around on a monthly basis to at least triple what you could have gotten off of the same stock doing a buy and hold. Right now, the difference between buy and hold stocks that are literally in your possession about 121 days or longer versus stocks that are in your possession for less than 5 days is the fact that stocks that are in your possession for less than 121 days are stocks that are going to be taxed on regular tax bracket rates, which is your total income plus the profits from the stocks. But stocks that don't move have a $0 tax bracket up to a certain value. $64,000 for head of household, $97,000 for married. It's like, I think, $30,000 or $40,000 for single. But if you're smart, after you have listened to this channel where I have told you, if you are not married, you file head of household. And the reason why you file head of household, you should have it on your work, your W-2s at your job, and you should have it on your tax returns that you were head of household. And think about it like this, and I know you can talk to your CPAs and you can Get your financial accounting advisors to confirm this information. Don't just take my word for it. Do some research and go double check it. But the head of household is not married to the other people in the house, but there are other people in the house that depend upon the resources in the house. Now, I want you to understand it's not just kids, because usually people think, well, I can only be the head of household if I'm the father or mother of X number of little children running around the house. Anybody that is living in your house that is not a primary contributor to your house is a dependent of your household. So your best friend, family that's in a vacation, uh, um, girlfriends, people that are living in your house that are, even if they're chipping in a little bit, but you are dominantly covering the largest majority of the expenses in the household, you're the head of household. As a result, you should always file head of household. Now, if you file head of household, then you're in that $64,000 tax bracket with buy and hold stocks. Single is different from head of household. Single has a lower bracket than head of household, but single and head of household are the two options that you have when you're not married. When you're married, you file joint, but marriage usually gives you like 150% more often than not. Some scenarios they give you like 200%. Like they cap the joint income at $200,000, which is 100,000 from you and 100,000 from her, while single can be $150,000. So you see how, if you're doing single and head of household, you could do like $165,000 for head of household. But if you're married, you do $200,000. So you lose 50% of that income. Also, here's another one that a lot of people don't think about. You get yourself your own post office box. Post office boxes aren't that expensive. For some people, they think that they are, but you're paying upward of like $200 a year for a post office box. Now, each person who files their taxes from the same address is all collectively considered in the same household, right? Well, if your address is not the same address as the person sitting next to you, that's two different households. So your post office box is not the same as the other address, other people that's using whatever address they're using. So there's that aspect as well, which also adds a whole lot more to your ability to file whatever you're going to file and do what you got to do. So is at $60 for 6 months. That's cheap in some areas. In Minnesota, okay, well, I'm in Florida. In Florida, they're charging us like $100 every 6 months, which is like $200 a year. And in other places like California, it might be more expensive. Either way, you want to make sure, because if you're getting a post office box at a U.S. post office, because you don't necessarily have to get one from the U.S. post office, you can get one from UPS, you can get one from FedEx, any place that has a post office box that can receive mail. You can buy it from there and then use that as your mailing address when you're filling out all of your documents, which, side note, you can actually register your vehicle at that exact same address, because while people are misinformed to believe that they have to use their physical address on their motor vehicle, the only thing that you're required to do is put the address where they're going to mail any legal action as it relates to that vehicle to that address. That's all they're doing. So it doesn't have to be the physical address of your house. It just has to be an address where if they mail you a ticket or a summons or anything that relates to your car, parking tickets, whatever, that they mail it to that address, you're going to get that notification. That is all you have to do. So, like, for example, people who register their vehicles online, you can renew your registration. Usually, sometimes they allow you to do it like 90 days in advance of the expiration date. And some states are now allowing you like 30 days after your birth date, which is the expiration date of your birthday, to renew which gives you 4 months to get your paperwork in order. But you can apply online, not have to spend 2 hours at the DMV, and they can mail it to the address of your vehicle's registration. So if it's a post office box, they mail it there, you get it, now you're spending 5 minutes at the mailbox picking up your tag, sticking it on your car, and drive away instead of spending 3 hours at the DMV. This is the information you get from this channel that not too many people think about or even know about, but it is public information. Some of the stuff I found out from personal experience, a lot of stuff I found out from doing research. So I want you guys to understand there's a lot of information that comes from the show, which is why we're live 7 nights a week. We try to start about the same time every day, but sometimes we start a few minutes late. Sometimes we start on time, but every day we do go live, which is why I tell you guys to like and subscribe on YouTube, even if you follow us on Twitter and follow us on Twitch, because it'll tell you on directly on your cell phone that we went live, and then you jump on from whatever platform that you want to jump on. Michael said, if you live in Florida, buy stocks in Depends. Every rest stop has dispensers. Well, you want to buy, if you're living in Florida and you really want to buy consumer stock, you're talking about Depends, but you're also talking about toilet paper and bottled water, because we're idiots about buying toilet paper and bottled water, hand sanitizer, stuff to that effect. Any type of emergency resource, you want to, when you hear that a natural disaster is like 2 weeks out, you want to buy that stock, because Floridians, the first thing we're going to do is run out to the grocery store and buy a bunch of essential items that are non-essential for survival and stock up the house with it right before the hurricane. Then we're going to have an abundance of it, because a hurricane turned out to be a hard rain, a tropical storm that actually is just a rainy day, not even really a flood. High winds is the best that we get a lot of the times, depending on where we are. Because if you're in Miami, you're getting fucked. But every other place, it's just like high winds, trees blowing sideways kind of shit, but never uprooting anything, stuff like that. But they spend a ton of money like it's the end of the world. You were living in Louisiana, you hear high winds, you hear a hurricane party. But in Florida, you hear high winds, it's like, oh man, we got to go buy everything out of Walmart. So consumers, that's how you pay attention to how to make your money work, because right like 2-3 weeks before the hurricane comes, you buy into all of those consumer stocks. After the hurricane gets here, sell all of your stock. Couple weeks after the hurricane is gone, stock's going to plummet. You made your money. This is the kind of stuff that we talk about, guys. And this is just simple stuff that it takes a little bit of paying attention, watching trends, and then taking action based on those trends. We're seeing what happened last month and the month before, and we're comparing that. That is predictive analytics based on what has happened the last 2 or 3 times consecutively. That's what we would expect to happen the next time. So since we watched some stocks fall right around the 23rd of every month for the last 2 months, next week, Wednesday or Thursday, we're expecting those exact same stocks to fall. So we're not going to buy those stocks until next week, Thursday. Where it would have fell, we should be able to buy into it and then ride that increase up until the 2nd of next month. This is how expert level traders make their money. And one of the things we told you guys on the show back in the 2-3 weeks ago is that people on Wall Street don't tell you this, because you pay them a commission to know these things, and then they get a percentage per person per trade to spend 8 hours a day trade. Not even 8 hours a day, from 9:30 in the morning till 4 o'clock in the afternoon, riding the wave. They're going to get their cut out of your increase, and all you're going to do is put it into their hands. You could do it yourself, save on a commission, make a larger quantity of capital. Then you can control how you're going to do your buy and holds, which allows you to put more money in an area where you can do the buy and holds, and then put more money in a transitional area where you can literally 20-30 seconds out of the day, 5 or 10 minutes out of the day, check the stocks, move money around, and then go back to bed, or go back to golfing, or go back to riding on your yacht, or go back to flying across the world. As long as you have internet access, you can play the stock market by yourself. You just need to have the knowledge and the information. So stick with me on this and that, and I'm going to tell you guys as much as I possibly can to give you guys everything you need to know about where to put your money and how to save your money, not just by putting it into a bank account, but just not wasting it on bullshit that you don't need every day. Redirect your attention from frivolous spending or cap and save a whole behavior, and redirect your spending to benefiting yourself. You do not invest in someone else that doesn't turn you into a profit. You do not depend on somebody else without turning them a profit, which means that your network benefits from you the same way you benefit from your network. You are not going to leech off of your network, and your network's not going to leech off of you. This prevents you from stretching yourself too thin. This prevents you from stretching your relationships with your friends and family and your network too thin. And this ultimately gives you a higher valued way of life. You are only as good as your word. Your word is bond. That's how we were raised back in the 80s, right? And at the end of the day, that your dependability as a man is based on how much you can achieve. and how fast you can achieve it. If nobody in your network can count on you, you're worthless in your network, which means your network is going to depreciate. They're going to lose value in you. But if they can count on you as much as you can count on them, beyond love, love is blind. Beyond love, existence, relationships exist off of loyalty, dedication, devotion, duty. That loyalty comes from sacrifice. That dedication comes from the value of that sacrifice. And that duty is the feeling of the requirement to reciprocate. You have sacrificed for me, so it's my duty to reciprocate to you. And it's based off of how much I value what you did for me, not based on how much you value what you did for me, because you could have did it because it was something to do. I could have gave some people some stock trades that would have helped them save their house. But for them, that meant a lot. For me, it was another day on the podcast. I've helped a few people fix their relationships. For them, it saved their whole life, the most important thing to their life. To me, it was another day on the podcast. So it's not how much what you do for other people values you, it's how much it values them. And when you think about this, this is why you want to make sure that your decisions are strategically to benefit the people around you so that you can benefit from the people around you. That's networking. Think about every business deal. Elon and Trump were best friends until that bill went out and compromised Elon's ability to succeed. Now they're not friends anymore. That's all it is. But as soon as Donald Trump does something that puts money in Elon's pocket, they're going to be best friends again. That's exactly, if I can't benefit from you, this isn't going to work. That's what y'all have to understand. Michael says, this man knows what he's talking about. Listen with both ears, and I promise your life will improve. Baby steps if needed. This is true to life. This is true to life, guys. This is true to life. If you understand that everything that we have to do is going to take baby steps. We have to first change from our own first person accountability. We have to change our own bad decisions, start making good ones. Then we have to hold the people around us accountable for the decisions that they make that negatively impacts us. We have to hold ourselves accountable for allowing these negative opinions to occur in our presence that negatively impacts us. Once we have a network of people that are held to the same level of performance that we function on, we have a solid, stable network. This is going to mean that we have to change certain tires on certain days. You can't get a full set one day. You're going to start by the people that immediately impact you, your best friends, your family members, siblings, stuff like that, relationships, your children. You have to change that first. Then you're going to change the people you network with, your boss, your employment scenario. You're going to be changing the people you invest in, the people who invest in you. You're going to be changing that. The difference between the amount of people who put money in your pocket versus the amount of people who take money out of your pocket, you're going to change that and consolidate. You will see an abundance of wealth as a result. And that wealth, you'll be able to invest in other places. So let's go ahead and get started real quick. He said first the boss. Okay. In order for you to be, if you don't have 6 months to a year's worth of money set aside in order for you to say, I'm going to find me another job, you're not going to be able to change your boss at first. He said, fire the boss. That's what I see it now. Fire the boss. You can fire the boss. You can fire your boss. You can quit your job, but you got to have something to fall back on. If you're going to quit your job, you got to put some money aside. So you got to plan this like a rebellion. You know your worth. We talked about this last week. Gauge your worth. We talked about this last week when we talked about, what happens when you get fired. We talked about this 2 weeks ago when we talked about your mini retirement strategy. You start putting money aside to say, fuck this job, I'm out. You gauge your worth. You gauge your skill set. You talk to your boss about a raise or a promotion. You start gauging the market to see if you can find a better job somewhere else or the same job paying more money somewhere else. And as you start working towards moving out, you never lower your performance level on your job because you don't want them to fire you before you quit. You always put in more effort because you're on your way out. Train your replacement. Doesn't matter because the job isn't going to close down if you're not there. But maintain your position as an asset until your last day at work. And then when you're capable of safely transitioning, whether you quit your job and take a 6 month to a year hiatus, or if you're going to quit your job and immediately go to another company, make that transition. But you make that transition, you fire the boss after you have a support group. Mom's got your back, your sister's got your back, your girlfriend's got your back, your best friend's got your back. So when you're on your way out, you're on your way out. You don't tip off nobody that works with you that you're about to leave this place. You always over excel because you're about to leave this place. You're going to be the best soldier in the army because you're about to turn coat. That's how it's got to be, right? Now, if you fix your business life will be less stressful, and that will give you more opportunities to pay attention to your personal life. Then you can start fixing the things that are going wrong in your personal life. If there's something about your relationship that you're missing, you can find it if you're not stressing about your money. If there's something, and it does not have to be missing because your partner's not doing it. It could be missing because your ass is missing from your relationship. And now that you can be more present because you're not dwelling over your job, you can fix whatever is missing in your relationship. So this is a 2-part podcast. Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, we put money in your pocket. Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, we fix your personal decisions. And then Sunday, we have questions and comments from the fans. It's a highly interactive podcast. As long as I can see your comments rolling through the comment section, I reply to as many people as possible, as long as the comments are appropriate. And you guys will see all of the comments that are appropriate going up onto the screen until there's too many comments coming in, and then we'll have to do something about it. So before we start talking about, we got enough time for all that. Before we start talking about Colombia, everyone was talking about the big dip in July, right? Well, July's only been here for like 15, 16 days. Now, you've possibly seen some headlines, and maybe you've even gotten a little worried about your own portfolios. We were talking about this on the podcast yesterday. The chatter is just everywhere, from the big financial news networks to your social media feeds, and it's all painting this picture of a market in full retreat. We've all heard the buzzwords: downturns, volatility, corrections. I was talking to you guys about downturns in April when the stock market was going down everywhere. People have been talking about here in July, like yesterday specifically, like, oh, all of a sudden the market just dipped on Tuesday. What do you mean? It's the kind of noise that makes you second guess your entire strategy, the kind of anxiety that hits you right in the gut when you think about your retirement accounts. It feels like a classic case of fear taking over, making it seem like the gains from earlier in the year were just a fluke, and a painful drop was always just around the corner. And this is the emotional spending that a lot of people do that prevents them from being successful in the long run. But what if I told you that for most of the market, that dip was a complete myth? What if the story you've been sold, the one about widespread decline and panic, is just a flat out wrong level of information that was provided to a lot of people in a lot of places? Because AI is out there right now to the magnitude that they can generate an entire movie of fictitious information. The Onion is what we used to call it back in the day. Fake news that looks real. They can create a fake press conference with the president that never existed, and you couldn't tell that it's fake. AI has gotten so advanced now. Michael said the stock market is ran on your emotions. That is true. Because if somebody convinces you to sell, if you sell big, and somebody sees the stock shift because they saw you sell, it starts a bandwagon option of people selling. Which, if enough people start selling, enough people see that negative percentage happens, and once it starts reaching 5 or 7%, everybody starts running out of that market, the way everybody backed out of Tesla. But once the shit stables out, what the hell you think is going to happen? They're going to buy back into Tesla. So if you really wanted to make some money off of Tesla, first thing you want to do is you want to wait until September 31st and then buy back into Tesla. Because once everybody runs, there's nobody left there that's not loyal to Tesla, which means the stock's not going to get much lower than that. When you buy in, Tesla stabilizes and continues to turn profits. Some jackass is going to start buying back in. You're going to be at the bottom of Tesla's downturn and start being on the rise when Tesla starts coming back up in the market. Think about that. So For anybody who thought I was going to sit over here and hate on Elon, y'all got the wrong one, because that's not what I'm about. I'm about making money for myself as well as everybody else on the channel. Think about that real quick, because I'm still on that 2.5 million player list for the Cybertruck. I just feel like the Cybertruck is garbage, and I don't want to buy into the Cybertruck because it's not doing anything that they said it was going to do on the debut. But when they fix that shit, I am definitely going to be one of the ones that's going to have me a vehicle that drives itself. I don't give a fuck what I got to pay for it. And if they don't fix it the way I want it to look, not look, but function, before I get the Resvani, then I'm going to have a Resvani take. I will spend more money on a gas powered vehicle that does exactly what I want it to do, because the electric vehicle doesn't do what I want it to do, which is exactly what he advertised in the 2019 debut. So if it ain't doing that, I don't want it. Next to the solar panel on top of the roof. So it's like, And then, if you're on the list, they offer you discounts and incentives to get off the list, and they give you discounts towards another Tesla. So, at any point in time, I can say, hey, I'm still on your list. Can I get that car? Can I get the robo taxi? Because that's a $30,000 car. You give me a 30% off incentive because I'm on the Cybertruck list, and you give me the ability to get that robo taxi. That's big, guys. That's big. Think about that. Special shout out to the guys over here on Twitch that's watching us. I told you guys we're interactive. So we got Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. Y'all can start up a multi-podcast, a multi-brand, or multi-platform conversation here. That's what this podcast is about, is bringing a bunch of knowledgeable individuals together so that we can have informed public discussions that allows us to learn from each other and be able to make better decisions in an economy that does not support 95% of us, right? But the working class pays for this economy to function. I want y'all to understand that. Everybody under 100,000 a year pays into the economy for the economy to function, based off of our spending choices, the taxed income that we have, the tax spending that we do, because you pay sales tax. Sales tax goes to the government, and then income tax goes to the government. So the working class spends the most money. That's why billionaires are billionaires, because they never spend money. The working class spends the most money. So I'm talking to the working class so that we can spend more time making more money for it, so that we can stop being broke. Live your life the way you want it. You only go through it once. Look, he said I'm broke. Oh yeah, we can stay broke. Look, on paper, bro, I'm always gonna be broke. But if I'm living a life that I want to live and I got enough money to do that, that is what matters. I don't have to be a multi-billionaire. I just have to not lose my house, my car, not have food, not know where I'm going to use the bathroom at, not have clean clothes. I want to have, you know what I'm saying, enough where I can be comfortable in life, not be stressed out, not be frustrated about finances, about bills, about day-to-day operations. I mean, yeah, you're never going to be in a life where you're not pissed off about something, because you got somebody that took your parking space, somebody that cut you off in traffic, somebody that bought the last of whatever it is that you was trying to go buy when you went out there. There's always going to be somebody that's gonna piss you off. You bought a product and it wasn't what you thought it was, and now they don't want to give you a refund. There's always going to be somebody that pisses you off, but you should not be pissed off about your standard of living. You should not be stressed out, frustrated, or afraid because your standard of living is unstable. And that's what I'm going to put a stop to, by just giving you guys information that you can use on your own to fix your own lifestyle. And that's one of the things that most podcasts don't do. They don't give you guys information to fix your own life. They tell you join their seminar. They tell you buy their membership, buy their book, and then they'll tell you what you got to do to make yourself better. And then when you go to that shit, they're going to tell you join their website, which is even more money, and then that will coach you on how to get it. But it never gives you the core information. Me, you just hang out with me for a few hours a day, every day of the week, and you get everything. And if I miss something, ask a question. It'll be on tomorrow's show. Like the guy who came in yesterday from Sweden, we're covering Sweden on Wednesday of next week. There you have it. So in the next few minutes, because we're going to be going into the ins and outs of Colombia. So in the next few minutes, though, we're going to look at the hard data that tells complete different stories in comparison to what we heard over the past couple days. One of resilience, strength, and record highs that most people are completely missing. So we're going to cut through the noise, look at the numbers, and find out what really happened. One of the things that you guys are going to love about this channel is because we're not really driven by any type of political position. I'm going to tell you what really went down. I'm going to go find out about it. Then I'm going to tell you what really went down. So I'm not going to late breaking news and drop some stuff on you that's one-sided. I'm going to wait a week and then I'm going to cover this shit from both sides. So now before we get into the numbers, I want to be clear. I am not here to speculate or give you a hot take on bullshit. I'm going to tell you what's really going on from what I've seen. We're just going to look at the objective, verifiable data straight from the market itself. So we'll be looking at the big three, the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, and the Dow. We'll also dig into the sector that we're actually driving the market from and touch on the corporate earnings and global events that shaped the mood in July. Now, my only goal here is to replace that fear with facts and the confusion with a bit of clarity. The story, the data that is going to tell you is way more interesting, and for long-term investors, a lot more encouraging than the headlines. The headlines that want you to believe that everything is not there. He said, disclaimers first. Make sure you know I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not a lawyer. You still have to do research after you finish getting this information from me. I'm just telling you, it's like me reading a newspaper out loud in great detail. I want you guys to understand that. But I do know what the fuck I'm talking about because people are becoming successful just by listening to what I say and then following up on it. So let's separate the signal from the noise. Okay, we're going to do that. Now, let's start with the elephant in the room. This whole July dip narrative that people dropped in my lap yesterday. He said, do your own homework. Now, I love what he says about this. Now, when I tell you guys about stuff, this is the thing. In order for you to know where to look, somebody's got to tell you that something needs to be looked into. When we were going to college back in the day, we were supposed to do term papers, thesis papers, dissertations and stuff. And the teacher would always tell us, do not use Wikipedia as a credible source. I didn't get my information from Wikipedia, but I'm using that as an example. One of the reasons is that Wikipedia, while you can get all the information you need from Wikipedia, the fact is that it is made by a large quantity of unverified sources. So you can't guarantee that the information is accurate. Likewise, just popping into somebody's random podcast, you can't guarantee that the information is factual until you backed it up by doing your own digging, doing your own research. Now, what the teachers used to also tell us is that if you did use Wikipedia as a starting source to find the information that you was looking for, where you then went and found credible sources to verify your Wikipedia source would not be a credible source, but it would still be one of your sources. So if they gave you a assignment to provide 10 sources or 15 sources in your dissertation, you could have 5 or 10 extra sources that are not verified, but those extra sources are verified and validated by the credible sources. Now, the reason why I tell you that is that while I consider myself a very credible source, you watching me from the other side might not find that, which, point out real quick, majority of you looking at me from your iPhone. Now, if you know that I know that you've got an iPhone, then you know that I know that I'm a credible source. At the same time, think about the fact that because I gave you this information, now you know what to go look for. Now you know what questions to ask. Now you know when you go and decide to ask the Google lady exactly what is and is not true. You know exactly which questions to formulate, and that's when you start getting your information. Because if you were to just go onto the internet and say, did the stock market crash on Tuesday? Google might come back and tell you, yeah, something crashed. But if you ask exactly what crashed on Tuesday, Google might not tell you that. If you didn't know specifically something changed on Tuesday, that's the difference. I'm going to tell you what you need to know so that you know what to look for. So you can either take action off of what I said, or you can start looking into what I said and then take action off of what you learned. Either way it goes, you're going to be heading in the same direction that I'm heading, because You got your information from the same place I got my information, which is dominantly the internet, because most of us don't read books anymore. Um, Michael said, "Fools reports from the trash at the post office. Everyone has Einstein's in their pocket." He ain't lying. Now, I want you guys to know that it wasn't just pulled out of thin air. There were definitely some legitimate things to be concerned about. So the headlines were running wild with stories about geopolitical tension, especially in the Middle East, which were making energy prices jump all over the place. On top of that, talks of new tariffs and the trade deals were creating a lot of uncertainty. And truth is, it is confirmed on certain days the Dow did dip a bit, and media loves to amplify that. He said, listen, come closer now. When an index full of household names slightly, it grabs that headline. Okay. Plus, there was some real pressure in a few specific areas. Bank stocks, for example, hit some headwinds that dragged on the S&P 500 for a moment. That was mostly tied to all the complexities around the interest rates and what might happen with lending. When you see big banks underperforming, it's easy to assume the whole market is weak. This is a mix of real but isolated problems. And scary headlines created the perfect recipe for a story about a big market decline. It's an easy story to sell because it plays on every investor's biggest fear, which is losing money. But here's the thing: when you pull back from the day to day chaos and look at the data for the entire month, and we've only 16 days, 17 days now because it's almost 1 a.m. in Florida, the total picture emerges differently. That story about a market wide dip doesn't just fall apart, it gets completely turned in on its head, really. What we actually see is a market that was shockingly tough. It stared down all the global uncertainty, absorbed the hit from the new policies, and didn't just survive, it actually climbed to new heights. The data doesn't point to a dip, it points to a market that was fundamentally strong, driven by things far more powerful than the temporary fears of the day. While everyone was looking for cracks, the foundation was actually getting stronger. The single biggest fact that completely debunks the dip story is the performance of the major indexes. So let's be perfectly clear: the stock market did not have a major sustained dip in July of 2025. In fact, the exact opposite happened. Throughout the month so far, both the S&P 500 and the tech-heavy Nasdaq were either hitting or hovering near new all-time records, even though Trump just pissed all over Tesla with that July 4th bill that went out. On July 15th, which was yesterday, day before yesterday for anybody that's on the East Coast, while some financial stocks were slumping, the NASDAQ actually climbed to a record high for the second day in a row. That's Monday and Tuesday. Then on July 15th, July 16th, which is Wednesday, yeah, because right now we're on Thursday, the NASDAQ hit another record for the third straight day in a row. So the 3 days this week, the 3 business days this week that the stock market was open, NASDAQ was kicking shiznit, right? So where was the dip? Now, the S&P 500 also posted a gain, even with some small daily dips through the day. The overall trend was incredibly strong. Reports for the week ending around July 16th showed that the S&P 500 and NASDAQ were both up, and so was the Dow. These weren't small moves. They showed a market with serious upward momentum. The S&P 500, the best single measure of the US market, kept touching its all-time highs. The NASDAQ, powered by innovation, was constantly breaking new ground, and while the Dow did bounce around a bit, it was nothing more than normal market volatility. A few days in one index doesn't mean the whole market is dipping, especially when the other two are signaling incredible health. So, what was fueling the strength? The answer is in the market engine room, the individual sectors. While the dip story made it sound like everything was weak, the reality was the key areas were firing on all cylinders. So, first off, the tech sector was still king. The demand for artificial intelligence wasn't just a talking point, it was a massive economic force. This was perfectly captured by NVIDIA, which made headlines by becoming the first company in history to hit a mind-blowing $4 trillion market cap. That wasn't just a win for NVIDIA, it sent a wave of confidence across the entire AI and chip making space. But it wasn't just the tech giant. One of the most overlooked signs of strength was a small cap stock, the Russell 2000, which follows smaller companies, had already jumped over 5% in June and kept that gain energy going into July. And that's a huge signal. When small cap stocks do well, it usually means investors are optimistic about the US economy itself. It shows the market's strength went far beyond just a handful of big name techs. Finally, the energy sector gave the market a major boost. Rising oil prices, which, hey, blowing up Iran raised gas prices. It raised oil prices because it takes a lot of fuel to send 14 B-2 bombers over to the other countries and go blow them up and bring those planes back, because that's a all the way over there with no stop flight and all the way back with no stop flight. That's a lot of fuel. You got to understand that whenever the United States participates in war tactics, we burn a shit ton of fuel. Rising oil prices, partly because of the tensions in the Middle East, meant big profits for energy stocks. While the reason for the price hikes was uncertainty, the financial result was positive for the sector, adding another layer of support that helped cancel out the weakness in financials. Maybe the most interesting part of this whole story isn't just what the market did, but why. The market performance in July was a masterclass in ignoring short-term noise. Think about it. Investors were getting hit with headlines about new tariffs, geopolitical drama, and political fights. In a shaky market, any one of those could have sparked a big sell-off, but the market just struggled and shrugged them off a little bit. Why? Because investors were focused on the fundamentals. Corporate earnings were still strong, with lots of companies beating expectations. On top of that, there was a growing feeling that the Federal Reserve might be in a position to cut interest rates later in the year, which is almost always a huge boost for stocks. This created a situation where the long-term good news, strong profits, and a chance of help from the feds was more powerful than the short-term bad news from tariffs and political drama. That's right, confidence. Investors were able to see those risks as temporary noise, not as a real threat. The ability to see through the fog is the definition of confident bullish market. So, Let's go back to our original question. Did the stock market really take a dip in July 2025? Look at all the data. The answer is clear and simple. No, it did not. The story you probably heard, the one on the news, was all about decline and uncertainty. It focused on a few down days for the Dow only and the very real drama of global politics. But that narrative completely missed the forest for the trees. The real story, the one the numbers tell, is about incredible strength. We saw that the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq didn't dip. They soared to new record highs, with the Nasdaq setting new records 3 days in a row in the middle of the month, which isn't normal. We saw that this wasn't just about a few companies, it was powered by a booming tech sector optimized in small companies along with a strong energy sector. And most importantly, we saw the market that was mature enough to look past the scary headlines and focus on the things that really matter, which is strong earnings and the hope for better interest rates and better policies ahead. He said, there's that emotion again. A lot of the time, capitalism, you're capitalizing on stupid decisions. You understand? In desperation, people make stupid decisions. Now let's move on to retiring in Colombia for $600 a month. Because I know that's what most of y'all thought y'all were coming here for today. And I can give y'all about an hour and 10 minutes about this. Ditching the crushing cost of living back home for a life of tropical ease, all for less than a car payment. We're sold this story over and over again. I've been giving you guys every week at least one country that you can go to that is anywhere between 50 and 75% cheaper than the United States. I have covered some countries that are just as expensive as New York. He said, "What time does the plane leave?" Look now, I'm planning on either Vietnam, Japan, South Korea, or the Philippines. More than likely the Philippines, but I do have a lot of interest in Japan, China, Vietnam, because all of those countries inside of the Eastern Asian area is all about the traditional family styles that we don't see in the United States. I want to experience something different. I want to go to a country where men are respected, appreciated, and valued. Period. Women can call me an incel for saying that, but let's be real. Ladies, you will leave a man that's treating you like shit to go find a man that's treating you better, and men are leaving the United States to go find women that treat men better, period. That it is what it is. You understand? You devalue passport bros for leaving the United States to go find happy lives when it costs them thousands of dollars to go somewhere else and find somebody to value and respect them when you could have just valued and respected the men in your own country and got that thousands of dollars for yourself. Think about that. But a paradise where small savings can make you feel like royalty is the expectation. But what does that life actually look like in 2025? He said he wants to experience a happy ending, but it ain't gonna happen. Not in America. But you go to the Philippines and spend like $5 on drinks, you might even get that at the bar. Now, once you get away from the hype and the perfectly framed photos of infinity pools and fancy coffees, which Two Rivers coffee, which is what I've been drinking on the podcast all day, fantastic luxury level coffee, gotta tell you. What happens when the cameras turn off, when podcasters stop streaming and the real bills start showing up? That's what we're going to be talking about. Is retiring in Colombia on $600 a month a real possibility for a normal person? Or is it just a fantasy cooked up to get clicks? Well, We decided to find out. We put the exact budget to the test. On this particular show, we're going to be financially guinea pigs. We're going to show you the real cost, the lifestyle you can actually live, and the tough compromises that nobody seems to talk about when people start talking about how you can live in certain countries so cheap. You have to understand that your spoiled lifestyle in Western culture has certain expectations. And if you want to maintain that exact same standard of living or better, it's going to cost you. But if you're willing to part ways, which is considered a culture shock, from the spoiled standard of living and live on practicality, which is going to require some decent sacrifices, you can actually live cheaper than what you live right now. But what are you willing to give up to live the lifestyle that you would prefer to pay for? This is the 2025 reality check. All right, so here's the mission. We're going to try and live and maybe even enjoy life in Colombia for 1 month on exactly 600 US dollars. Not a single penny more. So to keep this real, we've got a few ground rules. Rule number one, we're staying far away from the tourist hotbeds. Forget El Pilabo in Medellin or the walled city in Cartagena. Those places are amazing, very beautiful, but they're built for tourists. And by being built for tourists, they're built tourist prices, which is overly inflated no matter what country you're in. He said, okay, my cost here for 1 month. Yeah, we're going to get there. So those places, $600 will be gone in 1 week. So we're not going to those places. Instead, we picked a more typical middle class Colombian city, a place like Pereira or Bucaramanga. These are great, safe cities with everything you need, but they offer a much more realistic cost of living. For this experiment, we'll say we're in Pereira, right in the heart of the coffee region. Rule number two, this budget has to cover everything. I mean it. Rent, utilities, groceries, a local health plan, transportation, and whatever's left over for a social life. No cheating by dipping into another savings. $600 is the hard limit. And rule number three, we have to live like a local, not like a tourist who never left vacation mode. That means shopping where Colombians shop, eating where they eat, and getting around how they get around. It's the only way to honestly test the $600 theory. So, with the rules set, let's dive into the biggest expense that can make or break the budget in any country. That's going to be housing. The biggest monster in our budget is keeping a roof over our heads. We've set aside $200 for 1 month's rent, which is the gas money in most people's car in America for a week, not even a month. So what does $220 actually get you in a city like Pereira in 2025? So we're going to be real. You are not getting a luxury North American style apartment. There's no doorman, no swimming pool, no fancy gym. For $220, you're looking at a small 1-bedroom or studio apartment in what is called an estrento, 2 or 3 neighborhood. Okay. So what's estrento? It's a socio-economic system Colombia uses to classify neighborhoods from 1, which is the poorest level, to 6, which is the wealthiest level. And I just told you 2 or 3, which is almost middle class. The system decides how much you pay for utilities. The lower your estrato, the more your bills are subsidized. Living in the lower estrato isn't just a good idea on a $600 budget. It's the only way. He said, once Powell is gone and the Feds cuts interest rates, the cost of living will go way down. That's not true. That's the furthest thing from the truth. Special shout out to Eric M. I love your perception of things, but the cost of living isn't going to go down just because the Feds cut interest rates. Actually, what happens is when interest rates go down, the requirement to fulfill interest rates go down. And when the requirement to fulfill interest rates go down, the ability to gain loans goes up. The ability to gain loans going up gives the ability to spend more money going up. When the ability to spend more money goes up, the buying ability goes up. The buying ability goes up, the demand goes up. When the demand goes up, the supply goes down. When the supply goes down, the cost, there's a higher demand than there is a supply. And what happens when there's a high demand, low supply? The cost of the supply goes up. So when the interest rates go down, spending goes up. Standard of living doesn't go down. Spending goes up. And when spending goes up, inflation happens. Now, the housing market stabilized. If the interest rates go down, more people can buy the house at the current market rate. When the tariffs go down, construction costs will go down. The price of the house will go down because the cost of repairs will go down. But the landlord's not going to lower your rent. He's just not going to raise it this time. Okay, it's not going to go backwards. It's just going to stop. It's going to level off. Now, we are in a buyer's market. If interest rates go down, we have a high supply of houses that didn't get sold before the stock market went to shit, before real estate went to shit, which means that when interest rates go down and you can buy whatever house you want, you can talk down the price of the house because they have been trying to get rid of this house for 358 days already. So you can get that house for $40,000, $50,000 less, sometimes $70,000 less than the value of the house, because nobody wanted the house because the interest rates were too high. But once you buy that house, that the value of the house is what you're willing to pay for it, or what somebody else is willing to pay for it from you. So say you have a house that's valued at $160,000 the last time it was appraised, and then say you buy that house for $130,000. How much is the house worth? Well, it's worth $100,000 because that's what $130,000 because that's what you paid for it. But if you keep the house a couple years from now, when other houses in your neighborhood is being sold for $160,000, your house is worth $160,000. You bought it for $130,000. You can get a second mortgage on your house for the $30,000 difference. That's what that means. Michael says, and I see it all the time. And then when the prices go up, people are willing to spend more money. Because you know what the funny thing about at least people in the Western culture is that we pay more for the rarity of something so that we can show it off to everybody else that we could afford to buy exclusivity. Even though exclusivity does not have more durability than the common stuff. So when those of us 80s babies, when we was going to school, if you know anything about Payless, if your parents bought you shoes from Payless, you would get picked on from the kids who got their shoes from the mall. Why? It wasn't because the shoes that came from the mall was better. It was because of the value from the observation of the kids that were getting their shoes from the mall, that the shoes from the Payless were of lower brand value, not of lower quality. It was cheap. That's all it was. It was cheap. It was affordable. It wasn't lower quality. But you can only wear a pair of Jordans until you scuff it once. You can wear a pair of Pro Wings until you can't tell what color the original color is. It's a big difference in durability. $350 until one scuff mark, or $35 until the shoe doesn't hold itself together anymore. Think about it. Eric says the market will be flooded. It will go down like it did in 2016, 2020, but people will be able to buy a home rather than rent, which will cause the rental market to go down. Well, that's an observation, but I actually contest that, specifically because the real estate market fluctuates every 8 years. So it went down in 2016, 2020. We're in 2025. So it's supposed to go down. That was almost 8 years ago. It's supposed to go down. And then it's going to go back up again. But when it goes down, you got to understand, it goes down for the sellers when it goes up for the buyers. And then it goes down for the buyers when it goes up for the sellers. So depending on which side of the market you're on, when you're talking about it went down, prices went down because it was a bad market for the sellers. That's called a buyer's market. Prices go up because it's a good market for the sellers, which means that the people who buy and flip the houses are making more money off of the house and what the house is worth, because the people who are willing to buy the house can afford to buy the house at the price that it's being set by the seller. So if you take the interest rates and drop the interest rates down from 7% down to 4%, that $400,000 house is still a $400,000 house. The only difference is the 4% difference in the interest rates on the loan. And while most states require you to have between 5 and 10% of the cost of the house as a down payment, it's easier to get 5 or 10% on $150,000 than it is to get 5 or 10% on $500,000. Then you got to make 3 times. Well, really, all loan companies want you to have between 30 and 45% or less debt to income in order to qualify for the loan in the first place. But if the interest rates go down, they might move that up and say you can have 50% income. That's the difference. You're now qualifying for the loan a lot better because the interest rates are lower. That's the difference, where they will then take a high risk lender or a high risk borrower and give them higher interest rates to offset the bad debt to income that person has. But in a market where it's already uncertain that the debt will be covered, nah, you got to be able to really prove that you can back this, because I can't back it, and I'm supposed to be backing you. That's the difference. Michael said Woolsworth. He said slide me a crack. Housing market is leveling off. Yeah, it's been leveling off for the last 3 years. Actually, cheaper to buy a duplex or close to the cost of a single home. Live in one side, rent out another. I would say, instead of close to the cost of a single home, I would say, if not a duplex, get a townhome where you have 2 sides. Like he said, you can live on one side and rent out the other side. And really, if you're renting out by the square foot, typically $1 per square foot, typically you're probably going to find your 100 to 200 square foot scenario with your duplex. Probably you might find like 500 to 800 square feet of estate. Because if you have a $1,500 to $2,000 not dollar, but 1,500 to 2,000 square foot house, and you cut it in half and say 1/3 of that is going to be like the loft or the in-law suite or the townhome section of that, and then you're charging them like $500 a month for that 500 square feet out of your 1,500 square feet or 2,500 square foot piece of house, not the rest of the land, just the house, right? Now, in doing that, you're, yeah, that 500 or 700 is going to include the utilities, because you can actually charge more because the utilities are included. So if you got 500 square feet of room that they're going to rent from you, and then they're giving unlimited utilities with water, electricity, and gas, and internet stuff, and they're going to give you like 700 a month to cover that. Now think about how your mortgage might be $1,000 a month. Well, if they're giving you $700 worth, shit, your mortgage is now $300 a month. Doesn't matter what's going on with everything else, because you're able to cover everything else because you've got an extra paycheck coming in to cover whatever it is that you got going on. Michael says, then after 6 months, you move out and rent the other side out as well. Now you got two incomes. That's the best part, because if you got two tenants living on the property and each one of them is paying 50% of the value of the property, or 75% of the value of the property, if each half of the unit is paying 75% of what it costs to operate the property, you are going to make a 50% profit off of 100% of what they pay into the property. So say again, you're paying $1,000 a month. Each person's paying 700 or 750. They're going to give you 700, and they're going to each give it to you, which you make it like almost $1,400 or $1,500 a month, but you make a $500 a month profit off of the two tenants that you have. You don't pay for the property at all, and you still pocket some money. That's the stuff that people don't think about. So many people run out there and try to get themselves a condo. The fuck you gonna do with a condo? You got to pay for the HOA so that you can fight for a parking spot outside, when a condo is just having a deed to the apartment in the apartment complex. That's really what the fuck a condo is. It's not actually a house of any kind. And with the HOA fees, you're limited with who you can have in your house, because it is a restricted deed that is controlled by the HOA, which is why if you're buying a property, you need to make sure that you pay attention to whether or not the deed that you're buying is a restricted deed or not. He said 50% is much better than the bank. Damn right it is. Damn right it is. So what does our $200, $220 apartment look like? The one that we were just talking about a while ago. It's small, maybe 30 or 40 square meters, and it's clean and secure, but it's basic. So you'll get a small kitchen, a bedroom, and a bathroom. So think simple finishes like tiled floors and concrete walls. If it comes furnished at this price, the furniture will get the job done, but it won't be winning any design rewards. The neighborhood, he said, now it becomes an asset than a liability. You're damn right, because when somebody else is paying for your property for you and you're making a profit off of it, that's when it becomes an asset. As long as you're required to pay for the property, it's a liability. Anytime money is coming out of your pocket, whatever it is, your kids, your dog, whatever it is, if you're paying money into it, it's a liability. When it starts making money for you, it's an asset. You have children, you're taking care of them for 20 years of their childhood. Then when your kids start paying your bills, they become an asset. They were a debt their entire life. And when they start taking care of you, when you get old, they're an asset. That's your retirement plan. Have 3 kids, so at least one of them takes care of you before you die. The wife, 100% liability. Ladies are going to be offended by that, but ladies, until you start supporting your men, you are a liability. Men are always an asset, unfortunately. And the reason why men are always an asset, because ironically, women will not date a man that is a liability. Point blank, period. Very few women will marry a man that is a liability. Correct me if I'm wrong, ladies. Make sure y'all like and subscribe. Now, the neighborhood will be a lively scenario to be in. Working class, Colombian communities, best place to get. You'll be surrounded by the sounds of life. Music playing, street vendors, shouting their daily deals, and neighborhood chatter. Not like the lowrider with the 22-inch rims. And let me replace that lowrider with the image of a Honda Accord sitting on 22s with rubber band tires and like 20-inch subs. Sound like cans rattling in the back with dark tinted windows being stalked by an unmarked SWAT car. None of that. None of that. Actual positive livelihood. That's what you will be seeing. You won't see many other foreigners. So speaking Spanish isn't just a plus here, it's essential for getting by. So finding this place wasn't easy, but we didn't scroll through the expat Facebook group where just pricing is just extremely jacked up for foreigners. We had to hit the streets and look for those uh, see Arindia signs in windows and talk to people directly to get this information. And it took some real effort and basic Spanish negotiation skills to really get to the bottom of what's going on here. Eric said, once mortgage and loan rates go down, people will be able to get back into the real estate market, and people will now be able to realize your dreams of buying a piece of land, your own piece of turf. I can relate to that. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I can relate to that. I agree with that. You will be able to get a good glimpse of taking your own. But I'm going to tell you before you get into that, one of the things I'm going to tell you is real quick. What you need to do is you need to first go and um, get yourself an LLC or C corporation, or build yourself a trust. Buy the property in the name of the business or the trust, and then get yourself a contract with your business or your trust where you're renting the property from the business or the trust. That way, you personally are not going to be able to lose that particular property in litigation of any kind because it doesn't belong to you legally. You still get the benefit of enjoying the asset, but the asset isn't tied to you officially. Think about that for a minute. Not too many people talk about that. Now, one of the things that you also can do, especially when we start talking about those irrevocable trusts, is that once you build this up, you start building that legacy. Instead of a living will that is going to require the government to issue the property to the next of kin and have probate and all this other shit, you can really establish a trust where the properties that you're buying right now, you can have a contract that is dedicated, the trust is dedicated to fulfilling steps as they arise. So if you have a certain number of kids and you're buying a certain number of houses and you're guaranteeing that when you pass over, that any one or more kids will benefit from any one or more assets that you have, as long as certain conditions are met. Certain levels of responsibility. Trust can be designed where you only get certain assets after you get married. Certain assets can trigger once you reach a certain age. You know, whatever the criteria is, once they meet that expectation, they contact the trustee, show proof of satisfaction of the stipulation, then they get those benefits. That way you guarantee that they're not going to misappropriate those benefits, and they should appreciate those benefits if they put effort into going to get them. So that's something that not a lot of people think about also. Then also, if you start talking about having capital gains that are in your trust, if capital gains that are paying residual income to your children are going to be a thing that you got to think about, you can set it up where they can get on as a beneficiary under the conditions that they get a life insurance policy that names the trustee as a beneficiary of that life insurance policy, and then they take the capital that they get and they pay that life insurance policy, and then they keep the difference, which ultimately means that if any beneficiary that is on the trust loses their life, the life insurance policy pays into the trust, which the remaining living beneficiaries of the trust can benefit from, which keeps the party going like the Rockefellers. Nobody thinks about that either. All public knowledge, guys. What did you think about the market today? Talk me through some of the stocks on your ticker and why I should look at them. He says, in my will, all my kids get $1. Okay, so according to Eric wants me to talk him through. I love these bait and switch questions because we're talking about Colombia, but now he wants to talk about the stocks on the tickers up there at the top of the screen. We had a lot of the stocks that shifted. Some of them went down, but a lot of them are going up. But they're shifting right now as they are reaching their ex-dividend dates. Some of them are shifting because they crossed over their ex-dividend dates, and these particular tickers are closely related to high dividend paying stocks with low buy-in values, which are usually somewhere close to real estate investment trust, but not all of them are real estate investment trusts. With that being said, they are performing the same that they had performed last month, which is showing predictability. And by showing predictability, you can look at the best days to buy in, you can look at the best days to sell. And if you're selling, you want to sell immediately after the end of market day on the ex-dividend date, because the first 3 or 4 days after the ex-dividend date pays out, the majority of the buyers that are doing the ex-dividend, the dividend rotation strategy, actually sells the stock, and it doesn't go back up and level back off for another 2 or 3 weeks after the ex-dividend date. So if you're dealing with a quarterly stock and you buy in a week before the ex-dividend date, you catch it on its lowest value and then ride the wave. You sell it on the ex-dividend date, or you'll wait 3 weeks or so and then sell when it goes back up to above your buy-in value, and then you walk away with the you walk away with the dividends, and you walk away with an increase in share value. That also requires you to split your money in multiple different ways, because if you're investing in more than one stock and you're going to do a buy and hold so that you exceed your buy-in value before you sell, that money is not moving for a few weeks, even though there's 5 or 7 stocks that you're going to want to invest in the same month. Think about the stock market today, as I told you about 30 minutes ago, is that the stock market is on the rise. The dip was happening in April. The stock leveled off in June. It is going back up in August. And if you're going to ride that wave, you're going to buy in, and then you're going to hold it when the stock market dips, and then you're going to sell it when the stock market exceeds your expectations, and continue with your dividend rotation strategy. But at no point are you running because everybody else is running. Because as the rich people move their money to gold and silver, the middle class and the poor people, this is the cheapest the stock market will be for another 10 years. So you want to buy in right now while Donald Trump is fucking up the rotation. He's doing this because it is going to make money in the long run. That's why he's doing it. He's not doing it because of racial bias. He's not doing it for anything other than we're wasting money in unnecessary places. And if we redirect the money to more effective locations, we will find a way to benefit in the long run. And he said stocks will continue as they are over the next month. So he's saying the same thing that I said. So take a deep breath, just woosah, and make that money on Zim on a second. What are some of the highest paying dividend REITs? Okay, funny stock, Eric. If you look at the top of the screen and you take down each one of the tickers that are up there, you have somewhere between 10 and 20 of the highest paying dividends with the lowest buy-in values. And those are quarterly and monthly stocks, with the exception of JKS. JKS is an annual payout, but all the rest of them are either monthlies and quarterlies. And if you follow the show on a daily, weekly basis, we tell you which ex-dividend dates are coming up, which one of these are worth buying into, what the values are, what the payout dates are. You can do your own research and follow it if you want to, but I'm the healthy reminder that lets you know, hey, you don't want to leave money on the table, grab a couple of these. Because one of the best parts about dividend paying stocks, which are called cash stocks, is that if you buy it and hold it, you get paid for it. As opposed to growth stocks, you buy it, you hold it, and you only get paid from it when you sell it higher than what you bought into it. Cash stocks are stocks that you buy it and hold it, and if you sell it, the difference between what you sold it for and what they paid you is your profit. But if you sold it for more than what you bought in, you got paid twice, because you also got paid the dividend. As long as you sold the stock the day after the market, or the after the market closes on the ex-dividend date, or the day after the ex-dividend date. Can I buy a block of your REITs? If you've got an ETF platform that has a bunch of REITs in a collective, then you probably could. But the reason why I gave you each one of those stocks individually is because if a platform does put a bunch of REITs together, they're not going to have all of these. They're going to have some good ones. They're going to have some bad ones, because the bad ones don't get traction if somebody doesn't pay into them. It's almost like buying a mixed bag of chips. They're going to have some flavors that people want, some flavors that people didn't know existed. You eat all of your favorite flavors first, and you eat whatever's left so that you don't waste your money. But at the end of the day, the ones that you eat last are not ones you would have bought if you had a choice. So instead of buying a bundle, I buy them individually. The same way individuals that invest in cryptocurrency that does trade bots, they specifically fine tune the highest valuation between certain ones like Bitcoin and Ethereum and other such, and they will piece them together in a way where when one sells, the other one buys, and you make a profit off of that exchange. And you only make those sales using trade bots when you're selling a high value stock for a low value stock, so that when that value stock goes higher, you're buying the low value of the one that you just sold, and you're going back up. And that's really the ideology of how trade bots work as well. I'm in on ANGC. That's fantastic. ANGC actually would take a dip on Wednesday or Thursday of next week as well. So if you bought in right now, you probably could have made a lot more money if you waited until I told you to buy in on Wednesday or Thursday of next week. But ANGC and Orchid Island are usually have ex-dividend dates towards the end of the month. Orchid Island pays out the weekend of the ex-dividend date. So between the 28th and the 30th is when Orchid Island wraps it up, and they pay you right after that. ANGC has the same ex-dividend date as Orchid Island, but it pays you at the beginning of the following month. So like the first 5 days of August, if you have ANGC by the 28th, you will find yourself with dividends by the 5th. But if you have Orchid Island by the 28th, you'll find Orchid Island payout by the 31st. That's the only difference between those two. However, the difference between ANGC and Orchid Island is that Orchid Island is about $2 or $3 per share cheaper than ANGC, and they both have 12 cents per share monthly ex dividends. So the difference between the two is that while ANGC is stable, Orchid Island is volatile. Orchid Island, if you catch Orchid Island, if it dips, when it dips on the 23rd, if you sell it on the 1st, right after the ex dividend date, you might get a gain from the sale and the ex dividend. Whereas with ANGC, if you buy it, it is going to gain, but it's only going to gain like a few pennies or a few dollars per, well, a few pennies per share, which depending on how many shares that you buy, you might get a couple dollars. Whereas with Orchid Island, if you catch it on the right spot, you might gain a few $100s off of the, because it's only supposed to dip 12 cents. If it has a gain of 30 cents and then it dips 12 cents, you might have a 15-cent per share gain, which means that if you sold 100 shares of that, you're making a whole lot more than what you would have if you only had a 1 cent per share gain off of AGNC. So if you're looking for stability, you go for AGNC. But if you're willing to ride the wave of volatility with Orchid Island, you go with Orchid Island, because Orchid Island is the cheapest stock on the market, period, with the highest dividend payout, period, averaging between 18 and 22% every month since February of 2025. Now, go do your research on that and let me know what you think. Because I've been telling y'all about these stocks since January, and I've been following them every month. What is it, the stock ticker? Well, Orchid Island is ORC, and AGNC is AGNC Mortgage. So you can find those. Now, back to the main. When you're looking at that particular type of lifestyle that we had mentioned earlier, it means that there's going to be some serious adjustments that you're going to be expecting. Yes, Orchid Island is ORC. So you're giving up the space that you would have in America, because America, you'd be having like big ass bedrooms, like your master bedroom might be the size of one of these apartments. Your living room might be a whole nother apartment, stuff to that effect. Special shout out to Bryla. High backwards. And you're going to be giving up some modern perks of affordability, and a truly authentic Colombian experience is going to be what you're going to be getting in return. So that is our first big trade-off. So in order to get that authentic Colombian experience, you're going to be giving up some of the space that you get from American lifestyle. And the roof is over our heads now that we have established what house that we're going to be living in. So now we're going to be talking about the utilities. This is where a lot of budget plans fall apart, but thanks to our low estrell apartment, we've got a shot because we've budgeted $80 for everything. And I'm about to break that down for you real quick. He said, what are your thoughts on AMCR and ARR? Well, he's going to go over every single stock. Yeah, you're right. Orchid is up 1.42%. So, Eric, we cover typically on Tuesdays all of the stock trades and everything to that effect. Typically on Wednesday, we cover all of the different countries that we can live in, like we're talking about Colombia today. I only covered the stocks today at the beginning of the show because in yesterday's show, when we were talking about how to avoid wasting your money on payday loans and invest that money somewhere else so that you can build your wealth up, so that you can have money to trade in the stock market. Somebody had came into the comment section and said that the stock market had took a dip yesterday, and I gave my word to everybody that was here yesterday that I would do my digging on that and then update you guys, even if it wasn't but a special news bulletin at the top of the hour, either today or tomorrow, so that you guys can come to understand what happened with the stock market yesterday. So after I covered that yesterday, that means that now today, when I tell you guys what really happened, then I'm going to come back on Tuesday and tell you guys every single stock that we need to be addressing. But throughout the week, I'm going to give you some heads ups about different stocks that you should be paying attention to. Now, do I follow 100% of 100 of the stocks or thousands of stocks that exist in every single market? No, I do not. I follow, nobody does. On average, people pay attention to specific stocks that benefit their objectives. They follow specific markets that benefit their objectives, for specific industries. Some people only pay attention to gold and silver. Some people only pay attention to crypto. Some people pay attention to the regular stock market. Some people only pay attention to either Dow, NASDAQ, or the S&P 500, but they don't pay attention to 100% of 100 of the stocks or thousands of stocks all across the market. So specifically, every single stock is not going to be in line with my wheelhouse. However, any of the stocks that I have listed up above are stocks that I have followed. My thoughts on every stock that is going across the top of the screen is that you should list all of those stocks down and follow my lead when I tell you when is a good time to buy into those stocks and when it's a good time to sell those stocks. Or you could do your own research and you can find, based off of the last 90 days of traction that those stocks have had, when is a good time to buy, the ex-dividend date that you need to buy it before, because you have to own that stock the day before the ex-dividend date in order to get the ex-dividend payout, and then sell the day after the ex-dividend, and then move on to the next stock. The quarterly stocks happen once every 3 months. We're going to be dealing with it, buying into and selling different quarterly stocks every month. But we're going to also take a portion of our money, which I recommend 50% of it, and put towards the monthly stocks because they're going to pay every month. So AGNC, Orchid Island, and I think Arbor Realty are 3 monthly stocks. Those are the stocks that you buy into and hold every month. The rest of the stocks are quarterly stocks. You buy them and sell them at your leisure throughout the month so that you get the dividend from that stock, and then you move on to the next stock. The ex-dividend date is not the payout date. It's just the date that you're on the books to qualify for the payout. The payout can come next month. Doesn't matter. At some point after you have sold the stock, you're going to get cash from that stock because you own that stock during the ex-dividend date. You take that money, you add it to your principal, and then you have a higher principal that you put into the new stocks that you're investing in the upcoming month. That is what we do. He said, PNW has been one of the most reliable real estate stocks for me. PMW does not make as much money as Orchid Island. PMW costs more dollars per share than Orchid Island. It has a cost that is higher than AGNC as well. But PMW might be a stable stock for you to buy into and hold. If you don't see PMW on my list, PMW is not one of the top 20 stocks with the highest payout with the lowest buy-in cost. Doesn't mean it's not a good stock. It just means that if you want to get more for your money in a shorter period of time, PNW is not on my list of top 20 stocks to look into. Doesn't mean you can't use it. It just means that I won't. Everything he is listing, he have done his homework, which minimizes his rup factors. Yeah, I'm gonna say that minimizes my fucking up factor. This means that if you look at those numbers, you chase those numbers, you go look at your trade platform, see what those numbers look like. I'm giving you specific tickers, which makes it easier for you to find, because all you got to do is put the ticker in and it'll give you the exact stock that I'm following. If you follow the ones that I follow, you know exactly where to start doing your research. And if you see what I see, you're going to invest in what I invest in. But if you see what I see, when I see it and I tell you, hey, now's the time to invest in it, you're going to see the same thing that I'm seeing. You're going to be like, oh shit, I should invest in that. That's the way it is. I will watch Orchid tomorrow and see if I can get it to get it on the dip. Bro, I'm not doing day trading. You're going to get that dip on the 23rd or 24th. Your Wednesday or Thursday of next week, Orchid Island is going to go down, and that's going to be the lowest it's going to be in July. And then it's going to raise more than 12 cents a share from next week, Wednesday or Thursday, when I tell you the dip happens. And then when you sell it on the 31st or the 1st of next month, you're going to be selling it at its highest point, and you're going to get more than 12 cents a share off of that sale. And you're going to walk away from it like, fuck yeah, I just made a bunch of money. This is the reason why Steven comes in every day. But yes, follow it. But this is different from having TD Ameritrade, and you're going to buy it in the morning, you're going to sell it in the afternoon. You might buy it again before the end of business day and then sell it tomorrow kind of thing. This is a buy today, sell in a few days, and that's it for that stock for this month. We literally make one to three trades a week. We're not making 30, 40 trades a day. And for any individual that is paying per trade, this is the best way to go. Oh, my risk factors. Oh yeah, my risk factors are really low. My P&I is to love. You're gonna love this. You doing a steady 8%, you are going to love this channel, Eric, because I am doing 14.5% or higher. I actually am very, very, very disappointed at 14%. I literally piss on Ford for 14%. So I love 15% or higher. I am talking to you guys about 18, 19, 22%. I'm averaging 14.5% with a dividend rotation strategy on a buy and hold. We're talking about 168% if you hit all the targets. Real world activity, we're looking at 75%. That's what we're looking for. 3 times the market value. That's what we're getting on our trades. So if you're buying into it, you're like, oh shit, that's what we're getting. Are you accumulating for long term? We're basically yes, because I have been telling everybody that it's a 20-year strategy. You're not playing this game for a quick win. This is a long haul. You're going to buy in, you're going to switch, you're going to sell, you're going to keep doing what you're doing. Do you ever watch Catfish Tyler channel? No. I spend so much time doing research for this podcast because I do a live podcast 7 days a week. And I have about 100 and something pages of research that I do that I have to organize and provide to you guys every week, which is why Michael and Steven and Bayside and Mr. Satellite and Usman and Carl can all tell you that I definitely know what I'm talking about before I get on the show and talk about it, because I had to curate this information and then structuralize it before I go live. So I don't pay attention to other people's podcasts the same way music artists don't listen to other people's music, because I can't be corrupted by somebody else's information because I did not know that they existed. I actually went and got my own information. And because I went and got my own information, if in the event you heard it from me when I didn't know that Catfish Tyler existed, if he said the same thing that I said, now you've got more than one source telling you the exact same information. The same way if you got it from Wikipedia, and then you got it from International Britannica, then you got it from CNN. If you got 3 different sources telling you the same thing, doesn't matter which one told you first. What matters is that you have a large quantity of information that is giving you the indications that you're looking for to make a buy or make a sell. That's what it is. And Michael says straight up, done my own homework. He is all about SOFI, just like me. That's right. I'm trying. Look, my goal is to give you guys the information for those individuals that are living from paycheck to paycheck, to save enough money from their daily spending to invest in stocks that puts money into their pocket, to increase their principal so that they can utilize that principal to continue to increase their wealth until such time as they can quit their job and live off of their stock options. That is the idea. Retirement is not set in stone for us. But the older we get, the harder it is for us to, majority of us who are working on manual jobs, whether you're sitting in the chair on the call center or you're lifting heavy shit, whether you're working in a restaurant or working in a hotel, we have a job that is physically stressful, mentally stressful, and we're not going to be able to keep doing it at 60 and 70 years old. At 20, 30, 40 years old, we need to be trying to find a way to put our money somewhere so that in the next 20 years, by the time we're 50 or 60, we can say, fuck this job, I'm out, and have a standard of living that supports us until we die. That is my goal, is to make enough money for you so that you can quit at some point in the next 10 to 20 years and stop working forever. That is the idea. But it's a long game. I tell people who get into relationships that people who get into relationships, $50,000 a year people, $50,000 a year people, 2 of y'all can come together and live in the same house. And if you're living at a $50,000 a year lifestyle and you got 2 incomes that's inside of the same household income, you could take 1 income and put it into the stocks. If you're putting $40,000 a year into the stocks and you're successfully winning on that dividend rotation strategy, you're doubling your money every year, no less. You're turning 40 into 80 every year, no less. And if you keep adding to that, within 10 years, you should make it really close to, if not cross over the threshold of $1 million. Once you reach that threshold of $1 million, you can park your money and leave it there. And that 15 to 20% interest that you're getting, that is covered by, in a marriage, $97,000 of non-taxable income that's not moving around. You could be living a $97,000 a year lifestyle and not have to work, and not have to move your money around, and not have to pay a third party to watch your money. But what it takes is for you to know that there's an option for you to do that. Michael said, we don't want you to hear knock knocks. It's the collector. Do you go live while the market is in session to recommend when to buy REITs? No, there is no reason why I would go live in the middle of the day when the show starts at 11:35 p.m. every night of the week. Again, when I tell you to buy, if I told you to buy over the last 3 hours, you should buy today. That way you have it tomorrow. You seem like a pro status where you want to buy and sell when the pennies raise 3 to 5 cents in the middle of lunch so that you have it at its highest point during that day to potentially sell tomorrow at the lowest point when you could potentially sell at the middle of that day. But from beginner to advanced, if you can buy after the market closes today, where your sale is done at 9:30 a.m. when the market opens tomorrow, you still made the purchase. If you got it when the market closes tomorrow, if an ex-dividend was set for tomorrow, you got it. If you sell after the market closes tomorrow and the market opens the next day and you no longer own it, the difference, that is yours. From beginner to advanced, That is the steps that needs to be followed by the average person that has not been a day trader their whole life, or the average person who is not a Wall Street investor, the average person who does not know how to trade. This is where you start. So I'm here to start telling people how to do this when you start getting in, start getting your foot in the door, and then you do what you got to do. And then, like Michael said, let your money work for you. I can't buy individual stocks until the market opens. Bro, you can do a stash app, which allows you to buy these stocks at the same time. You can buy them. You can schedule them to be bought whenever you want to. If you have a certain platform that you're using that isn't beneficial for trading, you can buy those stocks at you can set, like if I tell you to buy, you can buy it in the morning. You can write down the ones that I'm telling you tonight to buy if I told you to buy any. And then when you wake up in the morning, those are the ones that you buy. But you're buying it to hold it. Now, every platform is going to be different, which means that every platform is going to have different fees involved with your buying. But if Stash App, that's one of those fintech apps that allows you to trade ETF style and put a bunch of money down on a bunch of stocks. You're still going to get your ex-dividend dates. You have more flexibility with your trades. You don't have per trade fees because they only charge you a monthly $3 service fee, and you trade as much as you want. So if you change trading platforms, you might have more success with your trading. You could keep your trading platform with the trades that you normally do, and then have a second trading platform for the stuff that I'm talking about, which gives you more diversity. We've actually covered a show about trading platforms. You just got to go look for it. So there's a lot of information here that I want to cover with you guys. Ironically, though, I've only got about 15 minutes before I walk out of here because I got some clients that I got to take care of. And whatever I don't cover today, I'm going to cover tomorrow because we're going to be talking about some interesting stuff tomorrow as well. Now, we're going to talk about the electric bill in a place like Perennia with a mild climate. You don't need AC or heat, which is a huge money saver, but you still got a fridge, lights, and devices to charge. So because we're in a subsidized Estranto, we can expect a bill around $25 a month if we're careful, which you're right now, $275 next to water and gas. Water is also cheap, and the gas is used for cooking and heating water, which is incredibly affordable. You got another $20. So now you're at $295, right? And the hot water might not always be steaming hot, and the pressure can be a bit weak from time to time, but it works. Now, for a modern day essential internet, you can't cheap out on this, especially for staying in touch with family or managing things online. Luckily, Colombia has good competitive internet for about $25 a month. So now you're right around $310 or $320. We can get a solid plan that's fast enough for streaming and video calls. Finally, the cell phones, where we'll grab a prepaid plan from a provider like Claro or Tingo for around $10. So now you're right around $330 a month. And we can't get a monthly package with plenty of data and calls for day-to-day use. So that's really good for you. So our utilities have been covered, totaling $80 on top of the $220, which is, like I said, $300. I was rounding up to like $320, $325, and we hit our budget exactly. But this is only possible because we're in a low estrato apartment. In a fancier neighborhood, this cost could easily double or triple, which could completely blow our $600 budget. So this is one of those critical details that retire in paradise videos always seem to leave out. After rent and bills, we have $300 left for everything else for the rest of the month. The biggest piece of that is food. We've set a very strict budget for $120 for the groceries for one person for 30 days. That's just $4 a day. That's not possible in America, but it can be done in Colombia. This is where living like a local stops being a suggestion and becomes the law. If you go to a Carula or Éxito, Colombia's big Western style supermarkets, and fill your cart with imported brands you know from back home, you will fail miserably. A box of American cereal, a jar of Skippy peanut butter, a bottle of imported olive oil. These are expensive luxury items here that will destroy your budget. To make it work, you have to embrace the plaza, the mercado, and the local farmers markets. This place is a game changer. The food is fresh, it's local, and it is dirt cheap. He asked me, are you on the East Coast or the West Coast? Well, I keep saying that I'm in Florida, and last time I checked, Florida is on the East Coast. So we're looking about 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time right now for me, which is about 1 a.m., 10 minutes to 1 a.m. for Central Standard Time. And there's about a 2-hour time difference between Central Standard Time and California time. So we're looking at about 11 a.m., 11 p.m. for those individuals that are in California. Special shout out to Enhanced Utility. Philippines is a good to export. Oh, good to expats as well. I've covered Philippines plenty of times. Philippines is number one on everybody's list for traditional women and low cost of living, where it has been proven through my research and other areas that you can live in the Philippines with a upper middle class lifestyle in the Philippines culture, which is and it's around $1,000 a month. But if you want to live wealthy in the Philippines, you can $2,000 a month, and you're in the upper class standard of living. You're living like an American for $2,000 a month in the Philippines. But if you go and get you a traditional woman from the proverbs that hasn't been westernized by the big city culture, you can find you a traditional, respectable woman and still move her into the high life, where she's probably upping 2 class levels, 2 social class levels, where you're still living below the cost of living in America, because for $24,000 a year, you can live like a rich person in the Philippines, where for $24,000 a year, you need food stamps as Section 8 in America. Think about that. But he said that it's a good portion of the population that speaks English, and the prices are equivalent to what Colombia has as well. So that's a fantastic thing to compare, is that instead of slumming it in Colombia, you can live like a king in the Philippines. And he said, thoughts on Bill Gates trying to contaminate the food supply. We went from GMOs to we went from GMOs to cloning to they started saying that cloning fish is good now. I don't know. Bill Gates could look at Bill Gates contaminate the food supply. If you're not paying attention to where your food is coming from, it don't really matter if he contaminates the food supply, because he can only contaminate the food supply in countries and cultures that is receiving an abundance of non-farm built foods. Because I mean, it's not like he's injecting the shit at the Walmart. So if you go to a Whole Foods store, you're less likely to get the Bill Gates contaminated food. But if you go to a grocery store, you don't know where your food came from. Now, we got to wrap things up in a few minutes. So I'm going to try to get through as much of this as I can. We're dealing with food costs like the avocado size, which is going to be about the size of your head for under $1. That's pretty big. Like avocados this big. Huge bunches of bananas for pennies, and mountains of fresh fruit and vegetables, probably never even heard of. And a $120 budget means your diet will be based on Colombian staples: rice, beans, lentils, potatoes, eggs, and whatever produce is in season. So for protein, chicken and pork are cheap, while beef is more of a treat. You learn to cook from scratch, plan your meals like a general, and not waste a single thing. A typical $30 weekly haul from the mercado would get you a week's worth of eggs, a bag of rice, a bag of lentils, potatoes, onions, garlic, tomatoes, a whole chicken you can use for several meals, and a ton of fruit like papaya, pineapples, and mangoes. And you'll eat healthy, fresh diet, but it will be simple. So say goodbye to fancy cheeses, imported wines, packaged snacks. Your treats become freshly squeezed juice from street carts, or strong, sweet tinto that small black coffee that keeps Colombians running, all of that stuff. He said, make sure to like and subscribe. Off the plate I go. And I always leave here smarter. I really appreciate you, buddy. I'm going to be wrapping it up in a couple of minutes because, I do got to take care of my client here. Now, matter of fact, eating out is mostly off limits here, but you might be able to squeeze in a menu del deal once or twice a week, and it seats lunch items set at a small family-run restaurant everywhere that you can find for about $3.50 to $5, where you get a soup, a main course with meat, rice, a small salad, and a drink. And it's amazing deals like that that are a great way to taste local foods without killing your budget. Now, really cutting it close to what I got to be doing right now. You've covered $120 a month for groceries, and you've covered $300 worth of stuff for everything else. So you're right at $420 so far. But this is going to take discipline and a total shift in how you shop and eat. So you'll eat well, but not extravagantly, and it's another major trade-off. So while you have $180 left in the bank, let's talk about getting around and staying healthy real quick. First up, transportation is set at $50 a month. Owning a car is completely off the table. Buying a car plus insurance, gas, and repairs could cost more than the entire month of budget. Thankfully, cities like Pereira have fantastic and cheap public transportation. The bus system goes everywhere. A single ride is less than $1. With our $50, we can afford to take the bus pretty much wherever we need to go every day. So sure, it gets crowded and it might take longer than a car, but it's cheap to work. It's cheap to get what you need. Ride sharing apps like Uber are available and cheaper than back home, but on our budget, they're a luxury as well. So we might be able to afford one or two short trips a month on the emergency scenarios, but buses and our own 2 feet are the main way to get around. So real quick, really important, you got your health care. You set your budget, which is going to be about $40 a month. And this is going to give you a public health care system, which is called the EPS. So if you're a legal resident in Colombia with Colombian ID cards or Cedula, you have to sign up for that. And your monthly payment on this is based on your declared income. On our tiny budget, the premium would be very low, likely fitting around $40. And Colombia's healthcare system is surprisingly good, often ranked one of the best in Latin America. The EPS gives you access to doctors, specialists, and hospitals, but there are trade-offs. You'll probably have a long wait time for an appointment, and you don't get to pick your doctor. So the facility professionals are clean, and they aren't fancy private clinics, and they are here with a big change because very few doctors and nurses in the public system speak English. So you'll need to be able to explain what's wrong with you in Spanish or bring a friend that translates. So the private healthcare system or propaganda gets you faster service, private rooms, and English speaking doctors, but it's also a luxury that we can't afford for $600. So a basic private plan starts at over $150 a month, which would wreck our budget. So for $40, you get a solid healthcare plan, but it comes with a long wait and big language barriers, which is a safety net, but a very basic one. So now that we've covered everything, we have a subtotal of $510. That leaves us with $90 for the entire month. That's $22.50 a week for everything else. All the little things that makes life worth living. A coffee with a friend, a beer at a local bar, movie tickets, replacing a worn out t-shirt, buying soap and toothpaste. What does that $90 actually buy? It means maybe 2 or 3 coffees a week at a local shop, not a fancy one. It means a beer or two on a Friday night at a neighborhood joint. You might be able to see one movie in a theater. And here's what it doesn't get you: a safety net. There is zero room for error. One unexpected cause, a phone that breaks, a taxi ride you have to take, a small medical bill you can throw your entire month into, and that will put you in a world of chaos. So there's no money for travel, not even a cheap bus trip to a town nearby. There's no money for hobbies, classes, or gym membership. So there's definitely no money to put into a savings account for an emergency. So this is the reality of a $600 budget. So you are living on a nice edge where you're surviving, but you're not exactly thriving the way the YouTube videos promise. So he said, should I have left sooner broke? Life becomes a constant game of, can I afford this coffee, or should I save that dollar in case I need it for something else? It can be mentally draining. So we've proven that you can technically survive in Colombia for $600 a month if you're extremely disciplined. But if there's a giant roadblock we haven't talked about yet, and it's the one that makes this whole idea a fantasy for anyone new trying to move here, is the visa. And what I got to tell you right now is, because it's already 2 a.m., it's time for me to walk out of here and get into my client. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you tomorrow, since we have proven that it is not fiscally responsible to get into Colombia with $600, we're going to tell you tomorrow exactly what all you need to do to get into Colombia financially savvy. And then we're going to be talking about tomorrow's show as well. No worries. We only got about 5 or 10 minutes worth of stuff to talk about that I did not have time to cover today, but I will cover it tomorrow. So what I want you guys to do is I want you to remember to like and subscribe. Ladies, as long as the situation doesn't make sense, I'm going to keep asking ladies to make it make sense. So ladies, please make it make sense. And fellas, remember, this is a 75% male-driven podcast from the male's perspective. Any information that I give to you guys is designed to give you guys the ability to become higher value men. If in the event that ladies, y'all want to take advantage of this information, do so, because this is not gender exclusive information. This is here to make everybody more successful. So thank you guys for coming to this and that. I'm your host, Xander, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. And I will be seeing you guys tomorrow night with the rest of the information from Colombia.
Chase validation, now I validate myself. Building inner strength, putting doubt upon the shelf. No more unnecessary drama, no more wasted time. Climbing higher, constantly making my own climb. My network is my net worth. Choose your company wise. Surround yourself with eagles, not with sheep in disguise. Every interaction is a reflection of my brand. Quality over quantity, that's my personal command. I'm not vision, my expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield. To mediocrity and chaos, I will never yield.